Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're decoding something pretty mind-blowing, the epic millions of years saga of how the plant kingdom completely conquered Earth. We're going to move way past the basic biology here, to map out the radical adaptations and pure survival strategies that allowed plants to literally terraform our planet.
Here is our roadmap for today's journey. First, a welcome to Kingdom Plantae. Then the aquatic foundation of algae, the amphibians of the plant world, the first vascular plants, Gymnosperms, or the naked seeds, and finally, Angiosperms, the flowering champions.
All right, let's dive right in with Part 1. Welcome to Kingdom Plantae, mapping the territory.
You know, when we think of Kingdom Plantae, we might immediately picture fascinating rebels like the carnivorous Venus flytrap or that massive parasitic flower, the Rafflesia. But the true foundation of this entire kingdom actually relies on one massive evolutionary divide: the split between seedless plants, which are called Cryptogamae, and seed-bearing plants, known as Phanerogamae. Literally every single piece of flora on Earth falls on one side of this great botanical line.
Moving right along to Part 2, the aquatic foundation, algae.
So, long before forests even existed, the Green Revolution began fully submerged in water. The earliest plants utilized what's called a thallus structure, and it's honestly a brilliant strategy. Because they lived directly inside their food source, they didn't have to waste biological energy growing complex plumbing like roots or stems. Their undifferentiated bodies just naturally absorbed whatever they needed right from the surrounding water. It was the perfect low-energy survival tactic.
And get this, despite their incredibly simple structure, these aquatic thallus organisms are responsible for a staggering 50% of all CO2 fixation or photosynthesis on Earth. That means half of the carbon processing and oxygen production on our entire planet relies entirely on these simple, ancient aquatic life forms. We quite literally owe them every other breath we take.
It is absolutely incredible to realize just how resilient these organisms are. Take a simple unicellular algae, like chlorella, for example. It went from the pond directly to outer space to nourish astronauts. Because it is so incredibly dense in protein and easily cultivated, humans have basically taken one of Earth's most primitive plants and used it to fuel our most futuristic explorations.
As algae evolved and diversified, it split into three main classes: green, brown, and red. And each of these evolved distinct chemical pigments to capture light at totally different depths. So you have your freshwater green algae like Spirogyra, towering marine brown kelps using fucoxanthin, and red algae thriving much deeper in the water using phycoerythrin. It is a total masterpiece of chemical adaptation to different underwater light environments.
Which brings us to Part 3, Amphibians of the plant world, Bryophytes. As life finally edged its way out of the water and onto the muddy shores, a fascinating transition occurred. Bryophytes, like mosses and liverworts, basically act as the plant world's amphibians. They made the incredibly brave evolutionary leap to land, but just like frogs, their reproduction remains entirely tethered to the water. They still desperately need that moisture to survive.
Now, they still completely lack true roots, using these tiny anchoring structures called rhizoids instead. But these pioneers are unbelievably useful to us today. Alongside lichens, they break down barren rocks to create soil. Economically, though, they are a powerhouse, particularly sphagnum moss, which slowly decomposes over centuries to give us peat, a dense material we can actually harvest from bogs and burn for fuel.
Next up, Part 4, the first vascular plants, Pteridophytes.
Okay, so how do we solve the massive problem of surviving on dry, arid land completely away from the water's edge? Well, plants had to invent an internal plumbing system. Becoming tracheophytes was a revolutionary technological leap in plant biology. For the very first time, plants developed true roots to dig deep, true stems to fight gravity, and true leaves to maximize sunlight capture.
Pteridophytes, like ferns, stand as the very first true terrestrial plants. And beyond the complex internal chemistry that allowed them to conquer dry land, they are incredibly vital to us in the modern day. We actually extract their natural compounds to create modern antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. It's like having a pharmacy in the forest.
Let's move to Part 5, Gymnosperms, the naked seeds. With internal plumbing figured out, plants still needed a better way to protect their offspring in harsh winds and extreme temperatures. Enter Gymnosperms. To thrive in these environments, they formed brilliant underground alliances with fungus, a relationship called mycorrhiza. Instead of fighting for resources, the roots of some gymnosperms literally teamed up with fungal networks in the soil to mutually share water and nutrients.
proving that sometimes survival requires cross-species teamwork. It's really fascinating to realize that at this stage in evolution, the plant kingdom still hadn't actually invented petals or fruits yet. Gymnosperms are the first seed-producing plants, but their seeds are entirely naked, totally lacking a protective coating. Instead, their reproductive organs are housed on sturdy cones in structures called strobii. Just picture a tough pine tree holding its seeds tight in a pine cone against the harsh winter snow.
And finally, part 6, Angiosperms, the flowering champions.
Now we reach the absolute apex of our journey, the division that currently dominates the globe. Angiosperms solved the naked seed problem by developing protective seed coats, making them the very first flowering and fruit-bearing plants on Earth. And this was an unbeatable strategy. The beautiful flowers attract animals to help pollinate, and the sweet fruit encourages those animals to carry the seeds far and wide. It is an incredible biological partnership.
Within angiosperms, we see a crucial division. The older dicots, like sturdy, deep-rooted mango trees, versus the highly evolved monocots. It is totally wild to think that without the evolution of these parallel-veined, hollow-stemmed monocots, which include crucial global food crops like wheat, rice, and corn, human agriculture and civilization as we know it simply wouldn't exist.
So, let's step back for a second and look at this incredible timeline. We've tracked how plants continuously solved massive environmental problems, from moving onto land as amphibians, to building internal plumbing, to ultimately protecting their future through seeds and flowers. Every single adaptation was a triumph over an impossible environmental hurdle.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought to ponder. As our global climate continues to shift today, what radical new feature will the plant kingdom evolve next? I mean, they've survived coming out of the water, they've survived the freezing cold, and they've completely conquered the Earth. It is so exciting to imagine what the next million years holds for them. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open to the magnificent biology all around you, and I'll catch you next time.